Long before many of us knew what 3D truly was, we experienced it on a disc viewer, very much like this one I have on the screen. So, very fond of this product, and so I thought whenever I was putting together this class, this would be a great data set to take a look at and to get started on. Certainly will not complete this project, but we'll get started with it and take a look at how draft would affect something like a plastic injection molded part, like our main housing here that we want to look at. And obviously, the most recognizable features of this, I'll go through a few of those, and we'll kind of get started with this main housing. So here you can see I've got a bunch of sketch layouts that will help us get going with the major features of this particular product. And so I've got in here the classic disc, and so that way we can see the layout of the diameter and the spacing of the different gels that were in there, the photos, as well as the notches. There were 7 scenes on each one of these discs, and so we've got a pattern of 7 14 total photos, but 7 different view stations that we'll take a look at. The layout of the body itself, knowing where the optics need to go at a spacing of roughly 65 millimeters in between the eyes. Again, that spacing of 360 degrees divided by 7, that gives us this 51 and change. And then knowing that the optics need to be somewhere around 18 millimeters, and looking at an overall height or spacing of diameter of 90, so it gets us a pretty decent layout. And then the main body itself, I've sketched this main thing in just to save a little bit of time from sketching in the geometry live. But we'll take a look at each one of those, and then we'll look at the optic mounts, or where your eyes would go, what you would look through. Those are some of the main features of this particular slide or disc viewer. So as you can see, I'm pretty fond of using these layout sketches as a technique I've used over the years. And I've got all these set on the front plane right now. And that's just, again, so it makes it real easy for us to work on these multiple features, just deriving that sketch geometry ahead of time. But one of the things that I like to do is I like to differentiate these sketches, specifically something like another product. So even though this disc is not part of the product I'm designing, it's just as a reference for me to see things. I like to modify the view, or how the display of this particular sketch. And so we do that with the line format toolbar. And by default, the line format toolbar is not exposed. So you can get there by right mouse button on any of the toolbar areas, and we see that line format is an option. They're all in alphabetical order. When we select line format by default, all of the 6 main areas here are kind of grayed out. And so what we want to do is we want to select the sketch, not be in the sketch, but select the sketch from the feature manager, and then we can come down and we can start affect things like its color. Maybe I want to specify kind of this magenta pinkish color. And maybe I even want to reduce the line weight on that so that it gets really thin. We could even do things like change the line type. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a solid line. I just think it makes it a little bit easier to differentiate. But you can see whenever I selected out in space, clearing the selection set, now I have my classic photo disc in magenta, and it's in a thin line font. So that way it's just back there for reference. At any point in time, if I needed to hide that, I could do so, or bring it back up for us to design around.